So in this tutorial we are going to be discussing about tuples in Python. So tuples are actually similar to lists in Python. The only difference is that tuples are actually immutable, or in other words, tuples cannot be modified just like we do with lists, and there are many limitations to tuples. So we will see how to work with tuples in a more advanced way in this tutorial. Let's create a tuple here. So we can create a tuple here. Maybe I'll say numbers, and we can use the angular braces here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and so on. So if I just print this out, and if I run the program, we can see that the tuple has been printed just like it is. So this braces here, or this angular braces here, they are just optional. You can remove them if you want, and it is still a tuple. And if I run this program, we can see that it has been printed, and it is actually a tuple. And we can ensure that this is a tuple by using the type method. So if I ask for the type of this numbers, so yeah, it recognizes it as a tuple. So one special thing about tuples is that you cannot simply declare an element here. So now this should be actually a tuple, but if we just run this program, this is actually an int. So this is not a tuple. So if you want to actually have an element, you want a tuple with only one element inside, you just have to put a comma here. So now this is actually a tuple. So that is one special thing about tuple. And let's just declare some other elements inside this. So yeah, okay, so let's just, okay, we can also use the for loop to iterate over a tuple. So I'll say for number in numbers, we have to print the number. So if I run this program, you can see that each individual item has actually been accessed here. So yeah, we can actually access the individual elements using the for loop, or we can actually iterate over a tuple using the for loop. We can actually access the individual elements. If you want to access it, you can access it using its index. So if I say number of 0 and I print this out, so yeah, I just have to print this out. I just print it, you can see that you can actually access the individual elements. So here the element at 0th index is 1, and that has been printed out. So yeah, that is how you access it. So now if you just try to modify it, I said earlier that you cannot modify an item inside a list. So if I try to modify this just like a list, first if I say number of 0 is equal to 10, and if I run this program, we get an error saying that tuple object does not support as an item assignment. So we cannot modify an item inside a tuple. It is actually immutable or unchangeable. So we can actually get the length of a tuple using the len method. So if I say len of numbers and run the program, we get 5, which is the length of the tuple. So we can get the index of an item inside a tuple using the index method too. So we can actually say numbers dot index. So if I say 1, index of 1, we can see that the index of 1 is 0. So if I just change it to 5 and rerun the program, we can see that it is actually 4. So yeah, the index starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is correct. So yeah, we can actually get the index of an item using the dot index method. You can convert a list into a tuple using the tuple method. So I am just changing this to a list. So now this is actually a list. Just to prove my point, I'll just say type of numbers. If I run this program, it is actually a list now. So now if we just want to change this to tuples, so I'll say new numbers is equal to tuple of numbers, and if I print both of them, print numbers and print new numbers, and I run the program, you can see the first one is actually a list, and that is this one, and the second one is actually a tuple. So yeah, we can actually do the reverse. We can actually convert a tuple into a list. So now this new numbers is actually a tuple. So I'll say so if we just want to convert a tuple back into a list, maybe we'll use a new variable. We'll declare a new variable here called new numbers again. Okay, yeah, it's just a variable name, and we can say that it will be a list of new numbers. So if I print that one too, if I just print new numbers again, and if I run the program, we can see that it has been converted back into a list. So this is how we can actually convert a list into a tuple and a tuple into a list, and so on. So now we are going to discuss about tuple slicing. So let me clear the screen. So yeah, so tuple slicing is actually a way to, it's actually a great way to actually obtain subparts of a tuple. So say you want only these three elements from a tuple, you can use slicing methods to actually extract such parts from a tuple. So I'll declare, or I'll just say print numbers. Okay, this is how we actually slice tuples in tup this is how we slice tuples. So yeah, this is similar to list slicing as well. So we say 0 2 3. So yeah, we are asking it to start from the 0th index all the way to the 3rd index. So if I run the program, yeah, you can see that the first three elements has been printed. So if I just don't actually specify the 0 here and run the program, it will actually start from the 0. It will actually start from the beginning itself. So yeah, if I want maybe from the first index, and if I run the program, it starts from the first index, which is 2 in this case. So, and if I just don't specify an index here, if I just simply leave it like this, and if I run the program, it will actually start from the first index, and it will actually continue till the end, or till the end of the tuple actually. So we also have an optional step index that we can add. So yeah, we can actually specify a step index by adding an additional colon. So we can actually specify it by adding an additional colon like this. So there will be 2 columns, and now we can actually specify 1 or 2 here. So this will be default. If even if you just don't actually do anything here, it will be defaulted to 1. So in this case, this will actually print out all the elements starting from the first to the end with a step of 1. So if I run this program, you can see that all the elements have been printed. So if I just change this to 2 and rerun the program, you can see that every second element has been picked in this case. So that is about slicing for tuples. That is how you slice for tuples, and so that you can actually get some subparts and then use it efficiently if you want. So now we are going to discuss about unpacking in lists, or unpacking in tuples. So let's say we have a tuple here. Let's declare a new tuple called info, and I'll declare 3 values inside: a name, John, his age 30, and the city in which he actually lives, or maybe his country. I'll say USA here. So we have a tuple here with 3 values. Now I can actually access them using a way. So I'll say name, age, and country is equal to info. So yeah, now if I just print the name and if I print the age and I print the country, so if I run this program, if we run the program, you can see that we get all these values separately. So but you have to make sure that the number of items here is equal to the number of variables. Okay, so this should be equal. So if I just remove a variable here and if I just remove this 2 and I run the program, we get an error saying too many values to unpack. So expected to be actually have 3 here and we only have declared 2 variables here, so it should match this. So we have a way to actually solve this. So now we can actually unpack multiple elements using a star method. So let me just declare a new list here or a new tuple here called nums or whatever you want to call it, and I'll say 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then we'll actually say I1, these are just variables, it can be anything, and star I2 and it will be I3. So yeah, and equal to nums. So now if I print I1, I2 and I3, I'll have to print I1 first, I1, and then print I3 and then I2. So actually I1 and I3, both of them, or I1 it's actually the beginning value and I3 is actually the final value or the ending value, which is 6, and I1 is actually 1, and the remaining elements are now I2, and they are all actually combined into a list and into a single element. If I just run this program, you can see that I1, which is 1, it's the first element, and I2 6, which is the last element, and the remaining elements are actually converted into a list and it's actually stored here. So that is how we actually unpack multiple elements. Now we are actually gonna see, or we are actually gonna compare lists and tuples. So earlier I told you that tuples are immutable or they cannot be modified, whereas lists can be. So then why do we use tuples? Because tuples are definitely more efficient than lists. So here I have a simple program. What it does is it just calculates the size of the following tuple and the list. So both of them have the same number of elements and the same thing or the same elements. So if I just run this program, you can see that list is actually 152 bytes, while the tuple is only 88 bytes. So when compiling or when using a large amount of data, these factors can matter, and tuples are actually tuples are actually more efficient when uh, compiling or when using a large amount of data. So that is what I wanted to show you, and why we need tuples and why we use them. Sometimes it is just better than lists,